If you're ready to jump from console to PC gaming, then you're in the right place, because today I'm going to show you how to build this incredible Xbox-inspired gaming PC powered by the latest technology from AMD. We'll go through the build step by step so you can follow along and build this absolute gaming powerhouse. There's going to be links in the description below for all of these parts used in the build, and also a link to the full basket so you can pick these up for yourself at SCAN. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. For the processor, we're going with AMD's new flagship CPU, the Ryzen 7 9800X3D. This is the best gaming CPU on the market with AMD's incredible 3D V-Cache technology. For the motherboard, we're using the MSI Mag B650i Edge Wi-Fi with PCIe 4.0 and built-in Wi-Fi 6E for blazing fast connectivity. For storage, it's the Samsung 990 EVO Plus 2TB. With lightning fast load times and massive storage, it's perfect for storing all of your favourite games. For the RAM, we're going with the Corsair Vengeance 32GB DDR5 kit. This fast and reliable memory will keep our machine running smoothly. Onto the graphics card, and we're going with the AMD Radeon RX 7800 XT. With 16GB of VRAM, this GPU can handle the latest AAA titles with ease. Our power supply is the Thermaltake Tough Power SFX 750. Efficient and compact, this PSU ensures stable, high-performance power delivery in a small package. For the cooler, it's the Fractal Lumen S24 240mm. This low-profile cooler provides incredible performance, keeping our CPU nice and cool even under heavy loads. And it's all going to be housed in the Fractal Design Mood case, with incredible airflow and a unique design which mirrors that classic Xbox Series X look. The first thing when building any PC is to prep the motherboard. We'll start by removing it from the box and setting it aside. Then we can take out all of the peripherals like the SATA cables, Wi-Fi antennas, M.2 screws and any instruction or warranty leaflets. Once you've done this, close the box back up because this is the perfect flat surface to prepare the motherboard on. Go ahead and remove the anti-static bag, have a quick inspection of the board for any issues, then set the board down on top of the box. Now onto the fun part, installing the CPU. We're using the latest and greatest from AMD with their Ryzen 7 9800X3D. This is the best gaming CPU on the market, and with AMD's 3D V-Cache technology, it offers incredible performance. Perfect for this high-end gaming build. Remove the CPU from the box and set it to one side. Next, we need to open the CPU latch on the motherboard and lift the cover to reveal the CPU socket. You can see in the top left corner that there's a small gold triangle. This is important as we need to use this to align it with the small gold triangle on the CPU to ensure we install it in the correct position. Now gently remove the CPU from its protective packaging and carefully place it into the socket. You should feel it fall into place, and then you can give it a very light wiggle to make sure it's sat properly in the socket. Now just pop the lid back down and secure the CPU with the latch. Then you can discard the protective socket cover. And that's it, the CPU is in. Now onto the RAM. We've gone with Corsair and we're using two 16GB sticks of their Vengeance RGB DDR5 RAM at 6000 MHz. Remove the RAM from the box and then from its protective plastic casing, and make sure to flip open the latches on the RAM slots on the motherboard ready for installation. You can see on the RAM modules that there's a notch along the bottom. This aligns with the notch on the RAM slot in the motherboard, so it can only be installed one way. Once you've lined up your RAM, insert it into the slot with a little bit of pressure until you hear a click and the latch closes. Now repeat this with the other stick and you're done. Now it's time to pick up your screwdriver and install the NVMe SSD. We've gone with the Samsung 990 EVO Plus 2TB, so you'll have plenty of space for your games. You'll notice this sticker on the drive itself, but be sure to leave that on as it's actually a heat spreader. Use your screwdriver to remove the screws on the heatsink, then remove the cover, ensuring to remove any sticky plastic inside. Now pick up the drive and line up the pins with the slot on the motherboard and insert the drive at a slight angle. As you can see, the drive springs back up when it's pressed down. This is because it needs to be screwed into place. So now we can grab the tiny M.2 screws that we took out of our motherboard box and take one of these, and with the drive pressed down, screw into the NVMe standoff on the motherboard. This can be quite fiddly, so be patient. Once the drive is secure, you can then reinstall the heatsink and screw it into place, and finish by removing the plastic on top. And that's the motherboard assembled. So now we'll set it to one side and we'll prepare the CPU cooler. We're using the Fractal Lumen S24 240mm AIO. This is an all-in-one liquid cooler which keeps temperatures nice and cool, but creates less noise and takes up less space than a traditional air cooler. In the box you have the radiator, which is attached to the pump with two nylon braided tubes. There's an accessory bag which contains different mounting brackets, screws, spare thermal paste and cleaning wipes, and then you've got two 120mm fans. Remove the radiator and fans from their packaging and set the radiator down with the tubes facing up. You can see on the fans there's a small arrow. This shows us the direction of the airflow. We'll be using these as exhaust fans to push air through the radiator and out of the case. Line up the fans on the radiator and fix them in place using the screws provided. Now we need to remove the standard bracket from the pump and install the AMD bracket to fit our AM5 socket. So remove the protective plastic from the water block and slide off the bracket. Now this is off, we need to plug in our ARGB cable, as once the bracket's installed, we can't access this port on the pump. Once connected, install the AMD bracket as per the cooler's instructions, all the while being careful not to touch the pre-applied thermal paste. We can now set this to one side and get to work on the case. We're using the Fractal design mood for this build, as it resembles that of the Xbox Series X. Start by removing the rear cover, along with the 2 screws locking the exterior to the frame. Now lift the case and slide the shell off to reveal the bare bones of the case. Now flip the case over and remove these 2 small screws to remove the radiator mount. Make sure to keep these screws safe as we'll need to use them later. We now need to untie the case cables and move them out of the way, ready for the next step, which is installing the motherboard. Gently slide the motherboard into the case and line up the I/O shield on the back with the opening in the case. Once in position, we can grab the 4 small screws from the Mood accessory box that came with the case and screw these into the standoffs to secure the board into place. Next, we need to install the PCIe riser cable into the PCIe slot. To do this, make sure to flip open the latch on the slot on the motherboard, then line up the cable with the slot and insert it until you hear a click. This can be a bit fiddly, so patience is key. Now that's all done, we need to connect the case cables to the motherboard. This ensures that the power button, USB ports and case fan will all work properly. Now we can mount the cooler onto the CPU. Make sure not to touch the pre-applied thermal paste with your hands and gently lower the block onto the CPU. Now hook the screw brackets around the AM5 mount on the motherboard and tighten the screws, making sure the block is nice and tight and sat flush on the CPU for optimal cooling. Then plug in the other end of the ARGB cable into the header on the motherboard. Next is the power supply, and this Thermaltake Tough Power SFX 750 is perfect for this high-end build. It has all the power we need and is super durable thanks to its 80+ platinum rating. Take the PSU and insert it into the case and align the holes on the back with the holes on the case. Now grab the PSU screws from the Mood accessories box and screw the PSU into place. Once this is done, we can install the case's power connector into the PSU. Also make sure to flick the switch from the O to the I position, or the PC won't boot when it's all put together. Now we need to start wiring, so we'll begin with the pump and fan cables for the cooler. You can find where these need to go in your motherboard's manual, but they'll be labelled either CPU fan, CPU pump, or CPU opt. At this stage, I also installed the radiator mount to the radiator itself. So grab the small screws from your Mood accessory box and screw the radiator to the frame. Next is to install the PSU cables. With the radiator out of the way, remove the required cables from the bag that came with the PSU. Install these into the labelled slots on the PSU and then into the corresponding slots on the motherboard. We'll set the GPU cable aside for later. You can choose the cable manager at this point, but I personally wait until I know the PC is working before tying any cables down or making it look nice. Now it's time to install the radiator. Spread the cooler tubes, one under each side of the case, and install the bracket to the case. Take a quick look to make sure no cables are interfering with the fans, and then screw the mount into place using the 2 small screws we removed earlier. Now tuck the AIO tubes under the tabs on the side of the case to ensure they're not spilling out the side. Everything needs to be tucked away so we can reassemble the case later. And now it's time for the graphics card. We're using the AMD Radeon RX 7800 XT. With 16GB of GDDR6 VRAM, it's an absolutely incredible card when it comes to value for performance. Remove the GPU from the packaging and anti-static bag, and set it aside. Now flip the case over so we can get to the back of the motherboard and the PCIe slot, which is connected via the riser cable we connected earlier. Remove the 2 thumb screws holding the PCIe slot covers in place and take these out. Make sure to flip the latch open on the PCIe slot and gently slide your GPU into position until you hear a click. Now you can reinsert the thumb screws into the GPU backplate to secure it in place. We can now connect our PCIe power cable from the PSU into the graphics card. The next and final step is to assemble the case. Start by sliding the shell onto the frame. Now we can lock it in place by reinserting the locking screws from earlier. Now pop on the rear cover and you're done. All that's left is to plug in the kettle lead that came with your PSU and power this thing on. And there you have it. You've built your very own Xbox inspired gaming PC powered by AMD. Huge thanks to SCAN for making this build possible, and don't forget to check the links in the video description if you want to pick up these parts for yourself. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content like this, and thanks for watching.